Every year, more than 3 million reports of child abuse are turned in to authorities within the country. And every day, it is reported that 5 children die as a result of abuse. We're going to talk about that next, right here on Due Process, when we talk about the prevention and the care that people should take to prevent these numbers from becoming exponentially higher. That's next, right here on Due Process.
Major funding for Due Process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
Someday, your life will flash before your eyes. Make it worth watching. Introducing the 2013 Lexus LS, an entirely new pursuit.
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news, traffic, weather, sports, and business information 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Live, local, and committed to Michigan's future. News Radio 950, WWJ.
Thank you. I'm Henry Baskin. I'm your host for this edition of Due Process. We're going to be talking about child abuse, the prevention, the cause. We can't talk about the cure, but we can talk about how parents can assess the situation a little more closely. With us today, we have a president and CEO, I would say, of Care House, which is a center, as you can say, Cathy Weissenborn, devoted to this kind of problem, right?
Right. We are a child advocacy center for Oakland County, dedicated to intervention and treatment in cases of child abuse, and we also provide child abuse prevention programs for the community.
Okay, and Lauren Furneaux. Lauren, thank you for coming down. You're here to share your story, the story of your daughter, and I wonder, you're aware of Care House, and you know that most counties, or I should say half the counties in Michigan, have facilities to take care of abuse and neglect when it's suspected and people who are needing information. But that didn't get to you, did it?
No.
Tell us your story, if you can.
Lily was born May 14, 2008, and she was my entire world. We did everything together, and in April of 2010, we started seeing signs of abuse. And I would take pictures.
That was when she was 2 years old?
Yes,
okay.
Right before her second birthday. And we take pictures of documentation and of the bruises and the areas of concern to my attorney. And
okay, well, your daughter, Lily,
yes,
was living with you and with her father. Is that correct?
Yes, court-ordered.
Court-ordered. And it was separated.
Yes.
And he was married, right?
Yes.
Or he did get married after the baby was born?
Yes.
Okay. So tell us, what was the arrangement?
It was pretty much 50-50. He'd get her Monday at 6 to Thursday at 6. And then the third weekend of the month, he'd also have her.
Okay. When you said you started seeing signs of abuse, what did you see?
The first sign was a burn mark on her neck. And then she'd come home with bruises on her body. And kids fall, but Lily wasn't that kind of, she was always graceful on her feet. It took her a while to walk, but she watched her step. She didn't fall.
And she had resulting, what, black eyes?
She had 2 black eyes that she came home with.
Let me stop you for a second. Cathy, is this the kind of abuse that you see up to that point in time?
We will work with and see cases of severe physical abuse, which is what
would that qualify
here? Yeah, and there could be a case that would come to Care House that's severe physical abuse. Most of our cases are sexual abuse.
Okay. And the kids are ranged in age from when they can communicate?
We will see children as young as 3.
Okay.
Up through age 18, and sometimes we also work with developmentally disabled adults.
Oh, I see.
But 3 is, and maybe a very precocious child under 3, but that would kind of be the point at which they could communicate about what's happening to them.
Well, Lauren, what did Lily say to you? She was only 2. Did she talk about this?
When I would ask her, like one of the black guys, I said, what happened? And she said, I fell with Renee in the Sprint store.
Renee being the stepmother.
Stepmother.
Okay. And what about the burn marks and the other?
The burn marks, she was still not able to communicate that.
So she couldn't tell you?
No.
Okay. So what happened after that? After the signs of abuse that you saw, what happened?
We would take pictures to my attorney, and she stated that it wasn't enough evidence that the judge could take away full custody.
The judge could take away full custody from
me.
From you? Mm-hmm. Why would the judge take away full custody from you?
Because the judge in Lapeer County is known for making off-the-wall decisions and having a prejudgment. And
so you felt that your case was prejudged by this judge?
Yes.
Okay, so then carry on with Lily's story. I mean, so it was back and forth. You drop her off, and then the father would drop the child off to you?
Most of the time it was his parents, but we'd get her back, and she'd have more marks on her body. And
did you talk to him about it?
Yes.
And what did he say?
He said she's clumsy and she falls all the time.
Okay. Did you talk to anyone except your attorney?
No.
So that your attorney said, we can't go back to court?
Yes.
Did your attorney suggest that you see someone such as Care House?
Nope.
Or go to any state agency and report it?
No, she told me not to go to Child Protective Services or the police or doctors.
She told you not to go to Child Protective Services?
Yes.
But you knew your child was being abused?
Yes.
Or you felt that anyways?
Yes. So
you ignored that, or you took that advice, I should say, and everybody ignored the situation. And then what happened?
I kept documenting, kept taking pictures, and would call her every time that she would come back with more bruises, and it just kept coming back, not enough evidence. And the last weekend, I finally said that I was going to take her to the doctor, and the doctor was closed.
Okay.
And, she had come back with more bruises, and I said, I'm going to change things, and so I was going to take her Monday, but Monday never came.
Monday never came. What happened to your daughter?
On Saturday, when she had her weekend visitation, I dropped her off, and at 3 o'clock I got a phone call stating there was an accident, that Renee had fallen on her. And,
Renee being the stepmother?
Mm-hmm, they were taking a shower together. And her father called me and said that she fell on her and to get to the hospital right away. And it was an hour and 15-minute drive during normal, and it was rush hour. And by the time I got there, she was gone.
She was dead. And what happened to the stepmother?
She was arrested the next day, and it took a year to go to trial, and she was found guilty on counts of felony murder, criminal sexual conduct, and first-degree child abuse. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
And she's in jail now? In
prison, yes.
Okay. Cathy, you've heard this story. Do you hear stories like that, don't you?
We do hear stories like that, and this is an incredibly sad situation. We hope, the children that actually come to Care House hopefully have come before it gets to that point. Mm-hmm. But there are many children out there that never make it to Care House.
Yeah, that's when I said, well, there's 5 deaths reported in the country a day. That sounds like an abnormally high number. When Care, and you've been to Care House, haven't you, Lauren?
Yes.
And there are facilities like that around the state that people can call, right?
A child advocacy center like Care House, there are 20-some in the state of Michigan. Not every county has one. Mm-hmm. But, for example, Care House of Oakland County, we will service all of Oakland County.
What if she had appeared with her daughter at your facility, what would have happened?
Well, all of our cases have to go through law enforcement or protective services. I think if she had come to the door, we would have called law enforcement at that point.
I see.
But all of our cases come through law enforcement or protective services. So there is a report, there is an allegation or a suspicion that there has been abuse. And then the child will come to Care House. And the first step of the Care House process is an interview of that child. And we do those interviews in a very child-centric, in a specially designed room, appropriate to the age of the child, specially trained interviewer. And we're interviewing them in a way that is forensically sensitive, asking them to provide details about what's happened to them. And behind a one-way mirror, you have the prosecutor's office, law enforcement, and protective services observing the interview. And the idea behind that is every time a child has to talk about the trauma that they have suffered, it re-traumatizes them. They have to live through it again. So the idea is let's interview once.
Right.
Let's interview that child where everybody can hear what the child says, and then hopefully the child doesn't have to go through that again.
So all the people who play a role in the enforcement, possible arrest and enforcement,
Right.
don't have to re-interview the child.
Correct.
I mean, the story is told once. If they can do it. With a 2-year-old, it's more difficult.
It's much more difficult.
When you see signs of abuse, as Lauren said, can you act on that? If the child can't communicate.
Care House, you know, for example, our therapists that are working with children, or if a child comes and there are signs, we could report that. We would make a report to protective services, and again, that's the beginning of the process for any child that comes to Care House.
So in your case, you're out in a different county. You're out in Lapeer County. Did they have protective services out there? I assume they did.
Yeah, we have CPS.
And were you told not to contact them?
Yes.
What would be the downside of talking to Child Protective Services?
The judge could say that I was making false allegations, and he had already stated that I was obsessed with Lily.
So, he said that on the record?
Yes.
So you were intimidated?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to the father? Did you talk to these people that had her 4 days a week?
Yes.
And what did they say?
I said Lily came home with another bruise and or multiple bruises, and he said she just falls. She falls all the time. She's clumsy.
She's clumsy, but she wasn't clumsy at your house, was she?
No, she fell once.
We're going to take a break here on Due Process. Come back, we're going to talk more about what can be done and why the situation exists the way it does, and why it keeps increasing, and there may be some reasons for it. We'll be right back.
Legal referrals and more information on this and other related topics are available on our website at www.dueprocess.tv. There you'll find information on today's program, helpful hints to legal issues, support materials, and lawyer referrals. You can also stream previous episodes of Due Process.
We're back on Due Process talking to Lauren Furneaux, whose daughter was actually murdered, is what the jury decided. And Care House is a facility that could have intervened in a situation like this, right?
We could, I think we're in a different county, but in a case in Oakland County, yes. We could have gotten involved in a case.
Right. If someone came to Oakland County and they lived in Macomb County, you'd say, well, here's a facility out there. What has caused these places to exist? I mean, years ago, we didn't hear that much about child abuse and sexual abuse of children. Have you been able to determine why this has increased and why we need these places?
You know, the statistics, I think, are kind of staggering. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. And if you think about that in a kindergarten class of 20 kids, you know, that's 4 or 5 kids that will suffer sexual abuse. Not all of those children, very few of those children actually report it, and so those children suffer in silence. The Child Advocacy Center, like Care House, was established to help those children, to help those children have a safe place to tell their stories in a way that they feel confident, their voices can be heard, and a place for them to start to be able to heal. I talked a little bit about the interviews that we do, and that's really the first step for a child at Care House. It's the first step usually for the abuse to stop, and it's the first step on a healing process. That child can have therapy at Care House for as long as the child needs it.
Well, can you go as far as to say, look at this man who got divorced and had custody of his boys, who were 14, and this woman who's divorced and has a child, a girl who's 12, and we put them all together in the same house, and we leave them alone, and there is abuse and that occurs there. Are you able to separate these people? Is the court able to say, hey, we have to stop this?
One of the first, when a case is reported, one of the first actions that CPS is responsible to take is to make sure that child is safe until the investigation can take place. So if the perpetrator is in the home, perhaps the perpetrator has to leave the home for a time.
Okay.
Or the child goes and stays with another family member until they can investigate to figure out what's happening and is that a safe place for that child to be. Now, when you think about particularly sexual abuse of a child, in well over 90% of the cases, the child knows the perpetrator. It's not a stranger danger thing, although that does happen, and we'll hear about those things on the news. But well over 90%, the child knows the perpetrator, and between 40 and 50% of the time, it's a family member.
And they're able to tell you that, right?
Well, that's what will come out. Yeah, if the child speaks about it, is that you find out it is a family member.
You know, Lauren called her lawyer, tried to see your doctor. Is that what you said? Tried to see the doctor. There's a duty to report. I would imagine. But unfortunately, this child was not in school. But if the child were in school and the teacher notices these marks and black eyes and cigarette burns, they have a duty to report.
That's correct. There are 20-some professions in the state of Michigan who are defined as mandated reporters. They have a duty to report a suspicion of child abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse. They don't have to prove it, but they have to report it.
They have to report a suspicion. Well, does that include lawyers? Because I'm not certain myself.
I think that an attorney that's working directly with children probably.
Okay. Can you name some of the other?
It would be like a nurse or a dentist, a counselor in a school, the teacher, child care workers, people that are running a child care center. All of those would be the kind of direct access points to a child that if there was abuse going on in that child's home or somewhere related to that child, there is that person might be in a position to say something about it. There's a form that they fill out to give whatever factual information that they have, and that goes to CPS, and that would be the start of a case to investigate.
How old are the kids that come in for treatment or to prosecute? How old are they?
We will start as young as 3.
And up to what age?
Up to 18, and then developmentally disabled adults. Probably the average is somewhere between 8 and 12.
You know, it seems that every day in publications like the New York Post or UK Mail and things such as that, there is some bizarre story of a father the other day who made his daughter, 12-year-old, walk around in a diaper and so forth and so on, and humiliated her and abused her. It's psychological abuse, and I don't think it's all limited to physical abuse, but there's some psychological abuse, like you're no good and so forth and so on. I mean, I don't want to get into the Penn State thing and talk about, what happened there, but it's sort of, it's an epidemic in this country. And when we started, did you ever hear of sexual abuse of children when you were growing up? And you graduated from Central Michigan?
Yes.
Did they ever talk about it up there?
No.
Is it the fact that the word's not getting out?
Well, I mean, that's one of the issues. And children, I mean, when I was a child, we were taught about stranger danger.
Right.
Whereas, as I said before, it's over 90% of the time sexual abuse happens by someone the child knows. This isn't stranger danger. This is, a family member, a neighbor, a coach, and the child is confused. They love this person. They like this person. They care. They trusted this person, and all of a sudden these things are happening to them.
But here's the thing. As I'm sitting here, I recall a case where there were 3 girls in a family, and they were sexually abused by the father, and there was a divorce case. And he said, if either one of you testify, I will literally cut your tongues out of your mouth. So that's how they lived for 20 years, right, until the mother decided she wanted to get divorced. So they all came to court and sat there and talked about, that they threatened them, that they were going to tell the judge what he had done, what he had said. But I had heard all kinds of stories of this. I mean, people come to the office, 18-year-old girls, 19-year-old girls talk about how their fathers abused their friends, their girlfriends, and them, and they threaten them. And how do you remove that threat?
Usually there's a grooming behavior. So the perpetrator is identifying a child that is perhaps weak, perhaps lacks confidence, or he or she thinks he can get away with it. And there's a grooming behavior. There's treating that child as if they're special, maybe special privileges for that child, special gifts. And then that works its way quite often into abuse. So when the abuse starts to happen, the child sometimes feels like they're part of it. They caused it. Well, and the perpetrator they tend to be very manipulative. This is our special secret.
Right.
You can't tell anybody about this. No one will believe you. So, and the children quite often can be very manipulated because this is somebody that they knew and trust and loved.
When I said 3 million cases a year are reported, that means that probably 10 million are not reported, I would imagine. And to say there are 5 deaths a day as a result of sexual abuse and abuse.
Physical abuse.
Well, isn't that what happened? Was it a greater awareness that caused these numbers to escalate? Were they always there when we were growing up, when I was growing up, when you were growing up, when you were at Central Michigan? What did we know about this, or are we just finding out as in the last 10 years?
I think there is greater awareness now, and with mandated reporter laws where there has to be reports by those that work with children, some of those can help these things come out.
Okay, I can almost understand what Lauren is saying when her lawyer said, well, you might lose your child. There are cases where people say my child is being abused, my overnight visitations, the child's being abused, and it's not true. And that goes to court, and everybody is involved. You've seen cases like that, have you not?
There are cases like that, or a child will come for an interview and it's determined by the team that the allegations are probably nothing happened. But more often, something did happen to that child. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And quite frequently, the children can't make some of this up. I mean, the child will have sexual awareness that's totally inappropriate for their age. Right. Where did they learn that? And that's one of the signs that perhaps this is a legitimate allegation. Well,
in Lauren's and Lily's case, it was a horrific kind of sexual intrusion. It was beyond anything we could talk about on television or at any place except in a courtroom. But did you ever have the feeling that, okay, I'm going to go to court and I'm going to be abused by the system? Is that what you felt? So what is your word for mothers of young children? What do you say to them, having gone through what you went through?
If I could go back and do it again, I wouldn't have listened to my attorney, and that was supposed to be somebody that I trusted. I'd say go with your gut and don't make up things. Like you said, there are moms that make up things to try to play the system, and that's what messes with the rest of us. So I would say go with your gut, trust your instinct.
And go where? Go
to child advocacy centers and care houses. I didn't know about them, and and you're spreading the word, aren't you? Yes.
And you have something called Justice for Lily, right?
Yes,
you
we
raised
started
money.
a nonprofit.
As a matter of fact, you gave money to Care House,
Yes.
you recall,
Yes.
some time ago, raising through just having parties and funding, and you
We
do
have
that.
fundraisers, family fun nights, just things to make you cherish your children.
I know it's difficult for you to tell the story, but it must be told. And Cathy, I know you have people that come in and they don't want to tell you. They don't want to admit that the man that they married is abusing their daughter or their son. But you're here and the story has to be told. And that's why we're doing programs such as this, to let people become aware and know and get out in front of this thing and not wait. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Cathy, thank you. Thank you for all the hard work you do. It's a shame we have to have these facilities. It is.
We would
a
love
shame.
to put ourselves out of business.
Exactly. There
Yes.
has to be an end to this somehow, some way. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Major funding for Due Process is provided by Meade Lexus of Southfield and Meade Lexus of Lakeside, offering a large selection of new and pre-owned certified premium vehicles.
Someday, your life will flash before your eyes. Make it worth watching. Introducing the 2013 Lexus LS, an entirely new pursuit.
And by WWJ News Radio 950, keeping you up to date with the latest news.